Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Fontaine, and this is my true dating story. My name is Calvin, but I'm more affectionately known as Babe by my friends and coworkers. My story begins a couple of months ago. I'd been with my girlfriend, Anne, for several years. Our relationship was amazing, and the idea of marriage and starting a family with this woman was desirable. I never doubted for a minute that the two of us would make it last forever and not be a statistic like most relationships. We did everything together. We went on vacations, long drives, went to the movies, karaoke at bars, and even danced in the rain a time or two together. We were inseparable. We made our friends sick by showcasing our love for one another. I'll never forget the day we talked about getting married. I was getting ready for bed that morning after working the night shift the previous night, and Anne was getting dressed to go into work. I watched her get dressed, and after all of these years, I was still infatuated, in love with this woman. I was telling Anne how much I was in love with her when she paused, turned to me, and told me as much. I then asked her to marry me, and she said yes, yes, yes. We kissed, and then my future wife was off to work. As soon as she left, instead of going to sleep, I instead went to Walmart and picked up a high-quality engagement ring. It didn't cost a fortune, but it was the thought that really counts. Anne later gets home, and in a dramatic fashion, dressed to the nine, I'm on one knee proposing to her. She's excited, crying, sees the ring that I'm holding, puts it on her finger. It was a perfect fit. She pulls me up, hugs me, and then says, most certainly yes. For the next couple of days, our phones go crazy with texts from friends and family congratulating us on what we already knew was inevitable. After a few days of this, my phone finally died down, but Anne's still went off frantically. Anne was a chatterbox with a million friends, and she still remained excited even after all the added attention, weeks after our engagement announcement. The numerous texts Anne kept getting throughout the day and night started to honestly annoy me. Anne began to seem more fixated with her phone and running wedding errands, and we began to grow weirdly distant to one another. One night at work, I was given the opportunity to go home early. It was the day before my weekend. Anne was going to be off the next few days, and I wanted to get home to surprise her and get some sleep to enjoy the following day with her. I get home, Anne is sleeping in bed. I stare in awe at my beautiful future wife for a minute, and then that's when I notice her phone lighting up, with no sound, and at 3 a.m. At this time of night, all I could think of was there must have been some kind of an emergency. I was going to wake Anne up, but because I had a suspicious feeling, I decided to look at her phone instead. I noticed a bunch of numbers with no names attached to them, and with sexually suggestive comments attached to them. I immediately felt sick. I gingerly inched closer to her phone and scrolled through her texts. There were hundreds of sexts and nude pictures of guys. I put the phone down. I was crushed. Anne was not only receiving these texts, but she was responding inappropriately to them too. I laid in bed with her that night, but on the edge, furthest away from her potential touch. I couldn't sleep and laid there for hours, shaking with anxiety and rage. I finally willed myself out of bed, left Anne a note that I'd come home a little early and that I was going to see my mom and that I'd be home soon. I got to my car, drove to a parking lot, accessed Anne's phone records since we, shared a phone plan, and I started digging. It was worse than what I thought. Anne was averaging dozens of texts every hour for weeks. I thought I vaguely recognized a number that was texting her and texted this person with my phone. I found out that the number belonged to one of my coworkers. He explained that he had no idea that Anne was in a relationship with me or anyone else. He said that he found Anne on Craigslisted, advertising herself for sexual needs. He continued to tell me that he hadn't hooked up with her yet, but he knew quite a few guys that were on the regular, and that I could still find Anne's profile on the site. His story checked out, and I screenshotted everything in disgust. When Anne texted me that morning, I, in return, sent the screenshots of all the evidence. She denied nothing, told me to screw off, and that my stuff would be waiting outside for me when I got home. Sure enough, when I went to go get my stuff, it was scattered everywhere. Anne kept my valuables, electronics, and the engagement ring. She sold all of my things, and I heard that she was furious when a pawn shop had offered her $50 for the $200 engagement ring that she thought was more valuable. I still feel to this day that feeling cheap is way better than being Craigslisted on.